Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's session where we will be completing an online application for the government grant, Grow Your Business Online. We're going to wait for some people to trickle in. We have lots of participants entering the Zoom room, so we'll give everybody another few minutes. And we're still climbing. We're at nearly 25 participants. Looking great. Okay, and for people who are here for workshop 1, we talked about what the grant is and different eligibility criteria that are associated to the grant. What are the misconceptions about government grants and what sort of holds some business owners back from applying or pursuing. So we've demystified some of the things that, some of the perceptions rather. And in episode 2, which was last week, we also did a little bit of a deep dive into some of the digital tools that are out there to support your e-commerce strategy and some of the eligible expenses that could be applied from that digital tool space. And then lastly is this week. This is workshop number 3, offered today and also being offered this Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern for those that couldn't make it or for those that want to attend again. I think that we have a good amount of attendees to get started, so I will do that. All right. Today's agenda, welcome and introductions, and then we'll do a land acknowledgement before we get started with the live walkthrough of the Grow Your Business Online grant application. So first off, I'd like to welcome everyone to week 3. Thank you very much for attending. Today's session is going to be an in-depth and live walkthrough of the actual online application for the Grow Your Business Online grant program. Before we get started, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Nasreen Rada. I'm the Senior Manager of Program Engagement here at Magnet, and in partnership with Ontario Chamber of Commerce, I'll pass it over to Joanne.
Hi, everyone. My name is Joanne Saray. I'm Director of Programs at the OCC, and we are thrilled to be partnering with Magnet, bringing you this webinar.
Thanks, Joanne. So we are going to switch screens rather momentarily. Just going to deliver this land acknowledgement and then we'll get started. So I first and foremost acknowledge that the work that we do takes place on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, which is now home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. Our partners across Canada similarly gather on the traditional territory of the many Indigenous nations who have cared for these lands since time immemorial. So please let us take a moment to recognize that the traditional lands on which we are connecting from coast to coast to coast, we acknowledge with gratitude and respect the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples who were first, whose footsteps rather were first to mark these lands. Okay, and our walkthrough begins. So my colleagues will be helping me with these screens. We're going to be bouncing back and forth here. So the very first thing that we want to say is you want to go to the Ontario Chamber of Commerce website. First and foremost, this is our delivery partner for the Grow Your Business Online grant program. They will not only help you with your application, but they will help you every step of the way. So your journey really begins here. And as you get to the website, you'll notice that the Grow Your Business Online program is going to be listed there as some programs that are available. And when you click through, some eligibility information will pop up. And you'll be able to understand what is the grant. So that's the $2,400 that you get towards your e-commerce strategy, giving your e-commerce a boost, so to say, whether or not you qualify. And then slowly we'll get to the part at the very end. Once you've read through that and you feel like it's a good fit for you, you can apply now. Okay. Just some housekeeping before we get started with the actual application. If you have any questions throughout the conversation or throughout the demonstration today, feel free to pop them into the Q&A chat box. We have some panelists on the line today, in addition to Joanne and myself, that will be helping with answering your questions. But we have also considered that we don't want to wait till the end. We'd love to actually have some of the questions answered as we go through. So you'll notice that a lot of the conversation pieces that come up today will be pertinent to what's on the screen, which means that sometimes your question is probably going to be answered in short order, and it might actually be answered in the Q&A box at the same time. But in any case, this is an open dialogue for everyone to see in real time what they would experience should they put their hat in the ring for this grant. So you'd pick your language. It's available in English and French for any bilingual people on the line. And the first thing that you need to do is to create an account in order to access the application online. It's your own private instance, and all of this information is secure. So you'd want to create your account by signing up as a business. You'd put your email, your first and last name, the job title that you have, whether it's owner or whatever it may be. And then you'd create a password for yourself to keep it all secure, what your legal business name is and operating name, a phone number to contact you at. The website is optional, but what your address is, city, etc. All of those fields would be filled out in order to create your account. And then you agree to terms of use and you move forward. We're now going to move into our test environment or our demo environment so that we can show you without sort of muddying up any of the results there, what this would actually be like. We're going to hit apply for subsidy in the top right corner. This would potentially look blank for you as you do not have an application, you're starting new. And also note that at any time in this application, you can hit save draft and come back to it another time. So you don't need to do everything in a single sitting. Okay, so now you are in the wizard of the actual application, and this wizard is actually going to take you through the steps. You'll notice on the left-hand side, you'll always know where you are. And in terms of like how much further till we're done, or are we there yet? You'll always have that indication there for through the navigation bar. And you could also go back at any time to edit any previous information. So this is just an overview of the program. Again, a micro grant, $2,400 to help get your business online and give you an e-commerce boost. So let's hit next and proceed to terms and conditions. So just like all the terms and conditions that we experience in the online world, I really encourage all businesses to really understand what's in the terms and conditions. There isn't any sort of like, I would say, there isn't really anything that you wouldn't expect. You would expect that a lot of these things would sort of be here. Again, attesting to the information being true, the privacy of your information. There's a big piece to this grant program that's about being able to fill out a survey. So you have to complete a survey. And then there's also another piece that says, like, you know, it's public information that you did receive this grant, that you are a recipient of this grant. Beyond that, Joanne, did you want to add anything about terms and conditions? Or is it a fairly standard terms and conditions document?
It is a fairly standard terms and conditions document. As you've pointed out, Nazreen, you know, certainly the funder who is the Government of Canada, will have access to the names and participants and grant recipients.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so much shorter than your Facebook terms and conditions. If that gives you any comfort, you would hit I accept and move forward or save draft. So now we're moving on to eligibility and services. And again, it's sort of revisited here. This is again, sort of what you just saw in the terms and conditions. It's also another form of consent. So if you like, oh, I didn't see that, or, you know, the fine print, this is really sort of driving this home. You will be participating in a follow-up survey. You will be sharing your organization's information with the funder, the Government of Canada. And then of course, having your name, your organization publicly posted as a recipient of the Grow Your Business Online grant. So you'd have to say yes to all three of those stipulations before moving forward. Now we go through and sort of talk about all the different fields, or we answer the different fields that really contribute to that conversation around eligibility and services. Everything from your organization size, to the revenue that you made. So again, it could be 1 to 10 employees, it could be more. It's really just about being able to meet that 30K threshold. So have you made 30K gross in the past fiscal year, or in the last fiscal year, or if you're able to actually prove that that's happened in the 2023 year thus far, that also counts. As long as you can show, really just like provide the receipts, right? Being able to prove that, or submit any sort of tax information that would substantiate this attestation. Now, the type of organization here, you'll notice there's an orange yellow pop-up box on the side. And if you don't understand what that means, you can hit that little yellow box and it will show you who are the ineligible organizations. So this would automatically take you out of the running, okay? A not-for-profit, a real estate brokerage, multi-level marketing companies, reps that are from those companies, and then corporate chains, franchises, or registered charities. Okay, so let's pick a sole proprietorship for the sake of today's conversation. I do believe that we're going with an example here of we're going to go with a retailer for today's example, someone who sells clothing and accessories, for example. Now, industry code. I believe that we picked up the industry code when we did this the other night. There we go. 458. Thanks, Antoine. So that's your industry code. There's a long list there for you to choose from, and you may already know your industry code. Okay. You can scroll through and pick it out if you don't. Are you a registered or incorporated business? So we want to say, so what happens if we hit no? Great. And then if you need further clarification, there's actually a little link there that says example. If you hit yes, it would give you a different response. So you obviously need to prove that you're a registered business, okay? That's, submits and files taxes and does all those kinds of things. You would enter your business number here. We're going to just put a fake number in for the sake of the demo. And then if you have a GST, HST number, you would plop it in there. The next question is, how many years has your business been operating for? So you'd want to enter in whatever those details are there. And it could be, again, it could be a very new business and it could be not so new. If your business is accessible to consumers, this is a very key part of the eligibility criteria. You want to be able to prove that you're B2C. Even if your business is not entirely B2C, it might be B2B and B2C. You need to be able to say, yes, there is a part of my business or all of my business that is accessed by consumers. Okay.
Hi, Nisreen, this is just Lindsay here. Just 1 second. There is someone that's asking a question relevant to a section you just went over. Sure. Just about business number for a federal corporation. Is that okay, or does the Ontario business number be inserted?
That's a great question, Joanne. How would that work?
It does have to be your 9-digit business number. We do know that some of our applicants are registered in Ontario and some are federally registered or incorporated. So but you do have to, if you are federally regulated or registered, company, then you must be based in Ontario. You must be an Ontario-based company.
Okay, thank you. So that would answer that question. And then the next question is, have you previously received a Grow Your Business Online grant? So if you have, or you've already applied once, you can't apply again. You can only apply to Grow Your Business Online once. But if that has given you the e-commerce boost that you need to take you to the next level, and you're forecasting that your business will continue to grow, you may be eligible for the second part of this, or the second stream of this Canadian Digital Adoption Program that we're explaining today. And that one would be called Boost Your Business. So if anybody is teetering towards the 500K revenue mark, there is actually another grant that you are eligible for applying for as well, if you've already received the Grow Your Business Online grant. Moving on to the advisors piece. So again, this is a conversation around whether or not you would like to speak with an e-commerce advisor, which is available to you through the Ontario Chamber of Commerce. And they would help you identify your needs and provide some important resources, help you complete the application, all the questions that might be lingering in your head while you're doing that. You can also email them at the email there, cdap@occ.ca. So if you'd like to be contacted, hit yes or no.
Yeah,
And
and
then
I would say, Nazreen, too, if I can just jump in here, this is a really good point that if you are perhaps filling out this application and you might have some questions as you're filling it out, please reach out to that CDAP at occ.ca email, and our team can help you with any questions you might have while filling this out.
Thank you. Yes. So there's, again, if it's your first time completing an application, we understand that some businesses, because this is going to the government of Canada, it might create an extra level of pressure, but I assure you that it's not going directly to the government of Canada. The Ontario Chamber of Commerce will work with you to complete your application and to make sure that you feel confident submitting it as well. If you have a second business address or maybe a business partner that you would like to have included on your correspondence, you can enter their email address in this box here to make sure that everybody's on the same page. And then the second section, or one of the last sections on this page, is about hearing from you. So is your business interested rather in receiving information about any of the following topics? So this is a really an opportunity for your business to say, yeah, I'd love to hear about student wage subsidies or about equity and diversity training. Count me in. So it's almost like you're subscribing to receive really great information that is important for businesses to not only grow, but to thrive in our contemporary business landscape. So you can basically hit the little toggle on the right side to say, yep, I would love that. A lot of businesses that we've worked with in the past are very keen on participating in student wage subsidies. It's a very mutually beneficial experience for the business, for the student, and it also creates, a really nice talent pipeline for your business. So you may have a hard time finding staff, but you hired a student that is flourishing and growing and would be a really great sort of addition to your team upon graduation, perhaps. So that's just something to consider, okay? And then moving on to the how did you hear about this program? There's all sorts of different options here, and you could potentially select more than one. So this could be something that you saw on a website and you also heard of through a friend. Yeah, all these different types of things are listed here for you to provide some insight on so that we can best understand how to reach businesses like you for future programs. Please confirm that your organization is compliant and you've only submitted one application, and then you've not been reimbursed for the specific expenses that you're completing or submitting rather for this grant application. Essentially what this means is, are you being truthful and honest? Is your business legitimate? And have you double dipped before? So if there's no double dipping, and so you'll confirm to that before moving to the next page, which is now the actual core application. Now let's talk about the digital platforms that you are using. So what tech do you currently use? For this business that we're going to go through, or the example that we're going to go through today for the online retailer for clothing and accessories, let's say that they only have like a really old website from 2005 and it doesn't really do much and it's clunky and it needs to go. So let's say website only, and they don't really have a good social media presence. They haven't really had the time to think about social media, even though they know it would be a really great idea. So let's just put the website and maybe an empty and very ghostly Instagram or Facebook presence. Now let's move on to the next section where you talk about what you have for that in that regard. So maybe you have an Instagram account or whatever it may be, but it's not necessarily a business page. Is there an option here to select? Yeah, you don't really have that option. So you don't have any direct options, but you could say like, yeah, I have an Instagram account, but it's more of a personal account that I created sort of off the side that I'm not really maintaining. Let's move on to the next section. Do you use any of these online marketplaces? So you could say, let's say for this example that we don't use any of these things. We're not taking advantage of any of the online marketplaces out there at this point in time. We're a very young business and we have a little shop and we'd like to reach more people and not be limited to the walking or to the walk by traffic that we get. So let's talk about how we can choose some options and some goals that we have to make that business grow, to make this little shop grow. We'd love to have some search engine optimization. And we want a new website that actually allows people to maybe like purchase the clothes online rather than in person, like clothing and accessories available to, all shoppers across Canada. So let's select developing a new e-commerce website, search engine optimization, and maybe let's do advertising on social media platform, current or future advertising. That sounds like a good plan to me. I've thought about this a lot, and now I'm ready for the next section. So you can also briefly outline here. You could write something to the extent of like, I'd love to make my business accessible to online shoppers across Canada rather than be limited to where my store is located. Let's say it's in Sault Ste. Marie or something to that extent. And strengthening my social media presence in order to actually, leverage the power of Instagram. As we spoke about last week, it's a really great platform for aesthetics. And so I'd love to have various influencers wear my clothing and my accessories to not only promote it, but to also potentially open up an Instagram business account so that people can click and see my products and actually get taken and driven to my website. So that was a conversation from last week, but that's a really great example of how powerful social media can be, because over 50% of consumers hear about brands through social media. So let's move on to the next little drop down there, the expected timeline for the implementation. So I think it's going to take us a few months to maybe get this plan in order, and based on maybe me as a small business owner, it's going to take me some time because I have to do this off the side of my desk because I'm running my business still. So this is generally just a rough estimate of when you expect to do this by. It could change, and you could always inform the Ontario Chamber of Commerce of any timeline revisions that need to be made. Now we want to talk about some eligible expenses. So we mentioned search engine optimization. We mentioned using social media and leveraging some paid media opportunities. And then we also talked about an actual e-commerce platform. So last week we discussed all these things, and generally speaking, those are the three that we're going to just focus on today. So search engine optimization, let's just estimate that maybe $1,000 for search engine optimization. This can be as much or as little as you want it to be. This varies based on the tools that you're using. So we said last week, Google Analytics being a very popular one, you'd have an account manager and you could sort of discuss those things with them or your digital advisor. And then you could also sort of play it by ear. Like maybe I want to spend a little bit of money and see how this performs, and then I'll put another I'll put another order through, quote unquote, it might be called something else, but I'll put another revision through and try a different campaign. Now, if you want to do like paid media, let's say, I want to do some ads on Instagram, or I want to do some ads on TikTok. What would that look like? This happens to me very often where I'm going through my stories on Instagram and a brand would actually pop up in my stories, and I'd be able to see like, oh, that's a nice dress, or that's a nice so-and-so. And I'd be able to click on it and it takes me directly to that website. And this actually happened to me last night. I put in an order for, and luckily my husband's not on the line right now, but I put in an order for about 150 US for a brand I'd never heard of. And I spent over 45 minutes on that website looking up a little, just looking up things that I liked about it, clothing and accessories, hence today's conversation and example. So you'd hit add another expense, do another line here to say, let's do some social media advertising because it's quite effective. And you'd maybe allot, let's say, I don't know, $800 towards that. And it would be to have paid ads appear in stories or posts, or even to pay influencers. All of those things could potentially be part of those costs.
Yeah, I'd just like to jump in here. Influencers do have to be registered businesses. So if you are paying an influencer, please ensure that they are a registered business.
Yeah, and that would make sense, right? Everything that has to be submitted, Joanne, like it has to be substantiated, legitimate, having receipts. Like this is a government grant. And although it's very easy to get, you do want to make sure that you're really getting that a conditional approval. I think this is a great time to talk about conditional approval. Do not purchase anything unless you've received conditional approval. You don't want to be disappointed down the line. This is again an opportunity for you to sort of discuss and share, like, this is what I'm thinking of doing. Here are some costs, i.e. put them in your expense list. And then when you get that conditional approval based on what you put on your expense list, you have that confidence to actually pursue and pay for what you've said you want to use your grant for. So we have a little bit of money left, and I do want to take this opportunity to say, maybe you can put in a request for, let's say, some hardware. So you're able to get up to $480 out of the $2,400. You can get $480 of that. That would be 20%. To put towards a laptop or a digital camera or something that's going to help you with your e-commerce strategy. It has to be directly related to your e-commerce strategy. So I would use this new laptop to be able to do all the, more robust things like Google Analytics that drive traffic to my website so that people can make purchases. Everything has to really, at the end of the day, come down to and have a common denominator of like supporting my e-commerce strategy. And Joanne, do you have anything to add on that? Any nuances that I missed?
Definitely, it does have to be, as you mentioned, tied to e-commerce strategy. So we will need to see that in your plan. We would need to, the plan that Nazreen mentioned up at the top, you would need to explain what it is that you were using any hardware or software purchases for, how they support your e-commerce strategy. And to Nazreen's point, those items would be eligible at 20% up to a maximum of $480.
Thank you. All right. So that e-commerce plan that we did above, I know we kind of just filled in just some filler information for now for the sake of the demo, but how extensive should that be?
That should be give us a fairly good outline of your SEO, for example, if that's what you've chosen here, your Google ads, your new laptop. So what we would want to see is if you were perhaps using an agency to help you with your e-commerce ads or search engine optimization. If you were planning to, let's say, use an agency to do that, we would want to see, I am planning to hire an agency to help support my SEO and my Google ads, to help implement and support my planned online activity. I would be requesting a new laptop to support these functions. And so really, we would just need to see a bit of an explanation of what you were planning on doing and how you were going to execute those expenses that you have requested. Another thing I would like to add at this point is if you have already done a little bit of investigation work into what you would like to do and perhaps have received a quote, not committed to, because again, as Nazreen pointed out, we can't honor any expenses which have been undertaken prior to conditional approval. But if you have been able to get a quote from an agency or a quote on any of the hardware or software pieces which you are hoping to implement, please submit those with your application, because that just really gives us a better understanding of exactly what it is you're hoping to do.
Yes, thank you, Joanne.
So maybe, sorry,
yeah.
Nazreen, maybe I can even just step in here just to ask Joanne a follow-up about that. Someone's asking about if they need to get a receipt for Instagram and a Facebook ad. I guess that the receipt sometimes is not received until after the ad has been run. So is that, again, it's just sort of providing a quote on that, right?
So yes, we wouldn't expect a quote necessarily on Instagram or Google ads or things like that, unless perhaps you were engaging the services of an agency where they could say, we are, implementing a ad strategy, and this is, what we are quoting to implement your ad strategy, including your ad buys. So if it is in a quote in that form, if it's something you are doing directly, then obviously obviously we know that there will not be a quote available to you from, you know, Instagram or Facebook or anything. And we would just then expect to see the estimate of how much your ad buy was going to be.
Thank you. I really like this follow-up question from Wasif here. Can we spend on Google ad credits and then use the credits later?
That is an excellent question. What we would want to see, though, is that that the items had been implemented. So you have 3 months from the time of receiving conditional approval to implement the expenses that you've been conditionally approved for. So if you had purchased them, then by the time we are issuing your final review and you know, reviewing what you have done, we would want to see them implemented by that time.
Thanks, Joanne. Also, just in terms of, you know, previous sessions and recordings, previous sessions have been recorded. Yes, the recordings are available and they will be posted to the Grow Your Business website through the Ontario Chamber of Commerce website. So you'll see them all there. If you missed anything or would like to revisit last week's session, perhaps as the digital tools piece that we're talking about becomes more and more pertinent, you can definitely take a look at that video and see what was covered and what discussion topics and questions that came up from the audience, because oftentimes people have the same questions. So you might have the same as someone from last week.
So can I just jump in here for a second and just talk about the hardware piece that you entered in? As part of the hardware, when you're entering your amount in for the expenses, you probably want to add in the full amount because the system automatically calculates the 20%. So if your laptop, for example, cost $1,000 or $800 or $1,000 in that regards, don't put in 200, put in the 1,000, and the system will calculate it out to be 20%.
Oh, good call. Thanks, Daniel. Yeah, that's a really important point. So the system can do that calculation for you. You don't even have to do any thinking on that. Just put in how much it costs you. Oh, and look, there's a little pop-up box that explains everything. Perfect. All right, we're going to scroll down and we're going to show you the document section here. So you have 3 sections here where you need to upload. Again, these are required documents to some degree. An HST registration, I don't believe that that's necessarily required, but you do need to include your business registration documents. And you also have an eligibility attestation that you need to attest basically that you are the owner, you know, all the tax implications that come with that. The business registration is to prove that you are an operating business. And lastly, if you do have an HST documentation to share, then you could do that. So
yeah, and I'd just like to jump in here, Nazreen, as well, and say that if you are a business which is required to submit GST, HST, then that document is required and it will be necessary in order to move your application forward. So it would just be certain businesses which are GST, HST exempt, which would not require that document.
Thank you. All right, let's hit next and get into the small business information survey, which is on the next slide. So again, we sort of agreed to this, you know, participating businesses have agreed to complete the survey. And essentially what you're doing on that survey is filling out the details that are around self-identification. So when we get to that page, we'll discuss that in a little bit more detail. But essentially what we want to show you guys is, you know, a part of participating in government programs is being able to collect and measure data. And this data is, again, confidential. It's not going to be used for anything other than stats and government's ability to, you know, improve programs such as this. So don't feel, you know, nothing will be shared on any other level. Okay. So this is a really great question. What percentage of your business is owned by the following equity seeking groups? So if you are a single or a sole proprietorship and you're a woman-owned business, let's go back to that clothing and accessories retailer example. I'm 100% the owner and it's just me. I'm a one-woman show. I'm 100% woman on that particular toggle button. If I'm also a racialized person, I can select, so you can select more than one option. You could select if you're Indigenous, newcomer, a person with a disability, a racialized person. And then when you click on racialized person, you can actually include some of the information in the dropdown. I'm number 1 right at the top there. So I would put 100% yes, that's my makeup there. And then you can continue to fill out other fields as they apply, but that is essentially what the survey comprises of. Okay, so it's just a self-identification piece, and we can move on from there. Okay. Scrolling down now to the bottom here, you want to say total percentage of ownership. This goes back to my comment about whether or not I am the only owner, or whether I am co-owners with. I would say 100% if I'm again the one woman show. If I have a partner, I could say 50%, as maybe my partner is my other partner doesn't fall under any of these groups, for example. Okay. So I certify that this information is accurate and true, and that I'm completing this to the best of my abilities. I acknowledge that this will be like the information I've submitted will be stored on the cloud for the Government of Canada for this particular program, and I provide my consent and blah, blah, blah. So this is essentially all the things that you're certifying are true, accurate, and complete. And then there's an authorizing official contact information below. So basically, I'm saying that this is my name, this is my title, and I'm certifying as an authorized person for this business to be submitting all these things. Okay. As we go on to the next section, the next section is for documentation. And this is where you can upload any documentation. Again, this is the conversation about the quote. This is the conversation around anything that sort of supports your expense list or even supports your strategy. It's always nice to have a full application, because the more accurate and complete your application is, the faster you'll hear a response. And also the more accurate and complete your application is, the more prepared you will be to participate in the program. So once you submit your documentation, somebody from the Ontario Chamber of Commerce team will be in touch with you to discuss further next steps. Again, e-commerce advisors are available to you should you want to have that phone call, but you can also speak to an e-commerce advisor after you've submitted an application. And I will call on Joanne at this time. Is there anything that you would mention here in documentation, and maybe like the turnaround for submitting expenses? Is this also where you could submit your expenses?
No, because you wouldn't be submitting your expenses at this point, because you have not received conditional approval. So I would say going into this application, if you have your business registration ready, if you have your GST, HST documents ready, if you have your quote ready from your business provider that you have chosen, or any other service provider that you've chosen, those are great things to have already and able to submit with your documentation. Once you have hit the send button, our team will receive your application. You'll get a notification that it has been received. And then our team of reviewers will reach out to you if they have any further questions about what, any of your activities or any of the documents you've submitted, and help you to, clarify any of those points that we might need to move your application forward. I would like to say that all of the back and forth communication will be done within this platform. So you will get emails. Please respond to those emails within this application, because that keeps the stream of communication really smooth, and emails don't get lost. And if you're emailing our CDAP overall mailbox, then we have to go back and try and figure out which application your email is in reference to. But if you're responding to emails within the application, all within this portal, then it's automatic. Your email will get linked to your application, and it will make our response time much quicker. Again, any documents that you might be requested can all be attached within your email within this application. You'll see that the Dropbox for documentation will show up for your emails, so you can add any documentation you need to add. And then at the point where you have received your conditional approval and you have been authorized to go ahead with your expenses, the point that Nazreen asked about earlier, you will be able to submit your expenses, proof of payment, all of that, invoices, all of that information will be submitted through the portal here. So yes, you will be able to do those when requested, when you've received that conditional approval and you've completed those expenses.
Thanks, Joanne. So we had a little bit of movement in the Q&A around expenses. So you've just cleared those up. There is a question here about what type of document is required for eligibility attestation. So I think we've covered this, but just to recap it, this is your proof of your business registration. And then it's also your HST number if you have one. It's also the proof of that. Is there anything that should be spoken about in terms of like, how do I attest that I made that 30K threshold? Is there anything you can note for that?
Yeah, great question. So in the actual application, because again, remember, this is our test environment. In the actual application, when you go to attest that eligibility piece regarding either having one employee or 30,000 in revenue, you will be provided with an eligibility document attestation. So you will fill out that document, attest to either having an employee or having the 30,000 in revenue, and that will be submitted along with your application.
Thank you. All right, so I think it's safe to move on to the next section, which is the final review of your application. This is the page where you get to look through everything that you've submitted from the beginning to now to confirm that it's not only correct, but just to also see how far you've come. So congrats to you, you've made it to the end. We are going to be submitting our documentation for review at this point. And again, like Joanne mentioned, you can either save as a draft or finish. And when you finish it, you'll get a notification that your application was received by the Ontario Chamber of Commerce, and next steps will be in order. I do want to bring up at this time, so this is a great opportunity to get a little bit of funding, right? For you to start really getting yourself involved. This little clothing shop of ours here, really getting online and really leveraging the power of all these digital tools that will help give your e-commerce a boost, a presence, to give you an online identity. And really the idea behind this is to grow your business. So if you don't meet the 30K threshold right now, because you're just starting your business, that's fine. This program is running till, I think it's March 2025, Joanne, is that right?
That's right, March 2025.
Okay, so you could maybe be eligible in 6 months. You could be eligible in a year. Definitely something to keep in mind. And now that you've sort of seen just how easy it is, it's going to be really seamless for you to come back and hopefully participate if today's session does not, if you don't meet the requirements rather. And another thing that we did not mention is the ongoing strategy. So the eligibility criteria about keeping a strategy ongoing for 6 months after the program. This program is not here to be a one and done. This program is meant to support businesses who are thinking long-term, who are thinking around how do I sustain myself and remain competitive in this very changing landscape of showing the increasing need for digital tools and to be able to work with those tools. And nobody's expected to be an expert. And I don't think that a lot of small businesses have a lot of time to dedicate necessarily towards training and understanding all these services. But because this program has so many wraparound supports to not only guide you through it, but also point you in the right direction, you can do things one step at a time. There was an option there earlier in the application to say, do you need 1 month or do you need 5 to 6 months? So this is something that's like, we want you to consider this as a little investment that can help you with a really great return on investment to, again, remain competitive and be able to meet the needs of today's sort of environment, of the demands of your consumers. At the end of the day, your consumers and the data and the stats that we shared last week are really painting the picture of like, this is really in your best interests. So back to that 6-month strategy, Joanne, could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, so I think you've covered it well, Nazreen. Basically, we are asking as part of the requirements of this program that you maintain that strategy for 6 months. So we really want people to give their strategy a chance, give it a chance to take hold, and not implement it for a month and decide it's really not working for them and cancel it. So 6 months is the requirement. There's also a question saying, is there a fee for this service? There is no fee to apply for this program. There is no fee to contact the e-commerce advisor team either. So no charges.
That's great. Yeah, it's incredible that this is free. A lot has changed over the past few decades. If you can imagine what business owners maybe experienced even just 5 years ago or 10 years ago, there are so many supports available and there are so many programs available to help small businesses. Your local chamber of commerce is here to help you. And that's what your membership is really for, being part of a community that can give you not only the what, but the how and the why, and walk you through it and basically hold your hand all the way to the finish line. And this is really amazing. This is a great aspect of this program, that you actually get all that support and being able to contribute and support all these different avenues that are going to, at the end of the day, hopefully, again, give your e-commerce a boost. And that means increased revenues, increased digital presence. Having your business come up in a Google search is one of the most powerful things that you can do for yourself these days. So I would like to take this chance to open up the Q&A one last time for any net new questions that we might have. And otherwise, this recording, again, will be made available. If you missed last week's session or the week before that, that will also be made available. So you can watch the old, or you can continue to come to these sessions where we do share a lot about what's happened in weeks prior. The next session will be delivered this Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern. If anybody wants to give it another spin, or if they want to tell a friend, if you have any small business owners that would benefit greatly from participating in the Grow Your Business online program, please direct them to the Eventbrite link and have them register. This is a great opportunity. And I do want to ask Joanne to weigh in on one thing. Is there any competitive nature to this grant? Is the money running out? Is there anything that people should be worried about?
No, absolutely not. And another great question, Nazreen. No, there is no competitive. It's not going to be, we're going to look at your application and we're going to look at someone else's and decide which one is more worthy. We have funding available for all of those businesses that want to apply. The only stipulations would be perhaps fiscal year timeframes. If we've spent the money during this fiscal year, then it might run into the next fiscal year. But as you pointed out earlier, the program is running until March 2025. So if, before that time funds run out, we will be, letting everyone know. But at this time, there's no worry that funds will not be available to those who want to apply and who are eligible.
Thanks, Joanne. And once again, can I get that email address to connect with a digital advisor? We have Nancy in the chat asking for some support on an application. I think it's
sure. Daniel, could you maybe add that to the chat? It's CDAP@occ.ca, and Daniel will put that into the chat. So it's
perfect. Yeah. And then we have the last question that we'll answer for today. Does the funding cover the creation of a digital course to be sold on the business's website?
A great question. No, it does not, because that is your product that you would be selling, right? So we don't cover products or things for sale. We're covering the support of your e-commerce site and your e-commerce activities, but we wouldn't cover that particular item because that's something that you would be reselling.
Thank you. So if anybody has any sort of other questions that have not already been covered or can be sort of discussed offline with a digital e-commerce advisor, I have someone asking for the sign-up link for the Thursday session. This would be something that you would get from the Eventbrite link that you potentially signed up with, or if you're not here through an Eventbrite link, we can also direct it to I can direct you to the actual page here. Just give me a moment. Again, for anyone who is as interested, this will be made available as a recording, but we can also recommend that you follow the series and share with your friends who are also small business owners. So hopefully that is the right link there for you. Okay. Thank you very much to everyone for coming to the session today of our online walkthrough of a live application for Grow Your Business. We hope you have learned a lot, and especially take away that it's super easy to apply and participate. Thank you to the Ontario Chamber of Commerce for your expertise and helping us give all the right answers to the questions that came up today. And again, if you have any other questions, or if you have any sort of desire to continue, please visit the Ontario Chamber of Commerce website to learn more, to apply, to create your account, and to complete that application. Thank you. This concludes our session. We'll see everybody on Thursday.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.